Hello out there.
We're on the air.
It's Rink Moose talk tonight. The beers are cold.
The mics light up.
And the boys get set to fight. The gloves come off.
Opinions get thrown.
And someone slips on ice. One man howls.
The other scowls.
But the show must go on. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
You're an announcer with a long stick from time to time.
With hockey flows.
And more shots known.
Pierre Maguire's life. Not John's a leap.
Ovechkin's teeth.
And Hoffman's crazy wife. When Carey slumps.
And Bergevin stomps.
Duran's not LaFontaine. Jokes aside,
it's podcast time.
And Rink Moose is the name.
Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can.
Live from the Rink Moose studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Episode 21 of the Rink Moose Episodic Podcast. A weekly episodic podcast where two good friends get together and discuss all things NHL and their implications in a fantasy hockey universe. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Costu, along with my good pal. Today he was the Jonathan Taves lookalike on the ice, on the pond, Kyle Nice. Kyle, how are you doing this afternoon?
Pretty good, Nick. Had a very good holiday, spoiled as usual, and just very pleased to be joined by three of the classiest gentlemen in the North York general area here. We have Richard Magoni.
Hello, nice to meet you all. My name's Dante, and I'm a big fan of the podcast, so I'm happy to be here.
William Engels, Network Executive.
Yeah, well, just to let the audience know, this is our first Roundtable edition of the podcast. We thought it would be fun being the holiday season. We bring forward the lads who love the sport just as much as you guys do, each in their own different way. And they've got some knowledge to divulge this afternoon. And without further ado, Kyle, I know you want to get things started off. You had quite the eventful week in Newmarket, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right?
I did indeed, Nick. So the Newmarket rink, so we call it a pond, but it's just a maintained rink. It's somewhat of a legend of the holiday season for my friend Braden and I. And last week we went to the pond as we usually would, and there was a player on the ice that I knew right away. The general fan might not be aware of this guy, but he was unmistakable. 6'4", 220 pounds, just pure skill. Nick, I could tell right away. It was Quinton Byfield, 16-year-old.
Who's this man?
Quinton Byfield, 16-year-old hockey prodigy out of Newmarket, Ontario. Some call him the second coming of Christ. The guy's just so skilled, Nick, and he's going to be one of the top 3 picks in the 2020 draft. So I don't blame the general hockey fan for not knowing his name, but it was just really cool. He had his little Sudbury Wolves cap on, so I could tell it was him. But the one weird thing about the guy, he was wearing a full-on winter jacket during the whole on-ice session. I'm just thinking, yeah, I mean, come on, like it's boiling hot. I'm here sweating in a jersey, a single jersey. This guy's just, I guess he doesn't sweat. He's just such an athlete. But I was there with my friend Braden, and I told Braden just quietly, and he doesn't know who he is either. I'm like, Braden, come over here. It's like, Braden, this guy, he's a legend. Trust me. He's like, oh, bro, no, he's not. He's just a kid. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. We play him, and Braden gets absolutely schmungled out there. Just broken ankles left, right, and center. Ooh. And, yeah, it was, needless to say, the skill was evident. So that was my quick Quinton Byfield story. No, I didn't go up and shake his hand or anything, because he's so young, and he's not super big yet. But, I just played with him as I usually would, and, we were just two lads playing hockey. But now the next guy I met, and this was actually Christmas night.
And this one needs no introduction.
This one needs no introduction. And I got to the rink, and I was alone this time, but I just got this Nathan McKinnon jersey in my little stocking there. And I was like, you know what, I have to break this jersey in. The family's gone home. So let's go to the rink. Braden wasn't available because he was doing some family shit. But needless to say, me and Braden are on the phone. I'm like, Braden, you know what? I got a good feeling about tonight. I feel like it's going to be a good turnout. So I step onto the ice, and it's cut in half, 2 games, right? step on the ice, and I'm just, warming up, doing my thing. And in the corner of my eye, there's this sitting area, which, a bunch of chairs set up around a fireplace TV kind of thing. And I see this guy, good posture, extremely good posture, just sitting upright, just chugging a few beers, and he's just bolt upright. I'm like, who's this schmuck? And I looked a little closer, and he's got just this sort of ginger, grubby beard going on, a toque, and this gray shirt. I'm like, oh my God, it's Connor Mcdavid. That's the best player in the whole NHL, in the whole world, is sitting right over there having some sort of beer. I wish I knew what it was, Will. I really do.
That's the $1 million question.
I wish I knew what he was drinking, but he had a couple buddies over there, so I was a little starstruck for 30 seconds, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to play. I'm sure he's going to come on the ice, and then we'll see how things go. So I played my game, and needless to say, he came on over, and he played on the other game, the other side of the rink. So I didn't actually get to play with him, but he took breaks often, had more beer. And, I went over, shook his hand. I said, hey, Connor, nice to meet you. Happy holidays. And he said the same back to me. So I was getting a little sweaty there. I was like, oh my God. And then he turned to me and I quote, he said, hey, you've been out here a long time, eh? You're a champ. And I was just like, my knees buckled a bit, boys. I'm telling you. My knees went weak.
I think JFK felt the same way about Monroe when they first met. So good, nice to know that you have your hockey crush.
There you go.
Cross paths.
Not only did we cross paths, but he complimented me, which I was just... I told my whole family. I woke them all up at 1 a.m. I was like, guys, this is important.
Now how big is this guy? Like, he is the best player in the NHL, undisputed. So, like, how different does he look than just some schmuck across the street?
So, I always find this with NHLers when you see them in real life, but there was a peer of mine, a hockey guy of mine, a good buddy from the pond. He came up to me and he goes, "No, that's not Connor McDavid. He doesn't look anything like him. He's too small." I'm like, "No, man, that's him." I mean, sometimes they just look like this, but he's got a tall, slim build, but you can tell like he's got this athletic body to him where you just know he's like really quick. And he didn't turn it on or anything on the pond, but you could tell with his little movements. And like I said, his posture was just fucking bolt perfect. So, yeah, it was really cool to see. And he seemed like just a class act, just a good guy too, based on how he was interacting with everybody. But, man, he took a couple pictures with some kids. But, man, you should have seen the lineup of guys just watching his game. I've never seen somebody watch shitty like this, but... Yeah, what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to be a fangirl. I didn't want to go, oh, can I have a picture? Like, I'm such a big fan of yours. No. I went up to him, and I was all cool. I planned this for a long time. It took me a while to buck up the courage. Because I thought, I can't get out of here without not saying something.
You're not one of those Toronto birds, eh? Who
No.
always brag about their kills with Austin Matthews.
So you're telling me you didn't do what we did with Nazem Kadri? Where
No.
we was walking out of the game and we're like, oh, Nazem, please, can I get a picture?
No, I learned my lesson, Dante. Because, that day, Nazem just wiped his dirty, greasy hand on his jacket, took the pen and signed us, and said, get the fuck out of here, kids. Get the hell out of here.
Jonathan Tavares, you're my hero.
That's a different story. If it was Crosby out there that I met, it would have been a different story, boys. I would have went full white girl on this one, but it was all in all just a wonderful experience.
Craziest part is you remember that he's a 97 too. He's younger than all of us, for goodness sakes. Like, fuck, 21 years old, young prodigy.
Yeah, Richard, and that's why I told the guy that I was with. I was like, I don't know, man. He's younger than me. I don't feel right going up to him and being all fangirlish. So that's why I thought about it. I calculated my move and I played it cool. Shook his hand. Happy holidays.
And I think you played it well. You like the boy said, you didn't give that kind of fangirl reaction, and you were quite modest and professional about yourself. But here's another one for you. Who in the show, if you were to meet in the very same circumstance, or any circumstance for that matter, who in the show would you feel like you will just want to get in a scrap with? Like you just want to beat the shit out of them right there and then. Is there a guy in the show who you despise that very much?
Like some guy I just don't have any respect for. Like,
yes.
Because I don't like guys, but I have enough respect for them where if I saw them, I'd be really nice. But, man, that's tough. Like, I'm not one of those guys who hates Marchand, and I've always hated Ovechkin, but I'd walk right up and shake his hand, too. Probably Tom Wilson in this case.
Wow, okay.
You know, he's the flavor of the month for being just a schmuck. So, yeah, I'd say Tom Wilson.
Yeah.
But then again, I wouldn't say Tom Wilson because he's a lot bigger than me and he's really tough. So, yeah, it's a trick question, but I'd have to say Tom Wilson.
Yeah, all right. Well, neat story. Once in a lifetime, if you ask me. And yeah,
until he brings the cup back to Newmarket.
Of course. It's bound to happen, I presume. But anyways, we're gonna switch gears here, and as I mentioned from the top, it is the holiday season, and as every Canadian knows at this time, and I'm sure the Finns and the Swedes and the Russians and heck, even the Americans, it's been growing in traction there as well.
Oh yeah.
The World Juniors have started. They have begun as of yesterday. It was the first round of games. Canada beat Denmark 14-0. Laid 2 touchdowns on them.
Yikes. About
as perfect a hockey game as hockey games could get.
Yeah.
Kyle, other than what I've just stated, what takeaways did you have from this this beatdown of a hockey game?
Well, I mean, when I look at all the scoreboards from the night, Nick, there's 4 games on the slate, and they all said 2-1 except for one. And it was this 14-0 beatdown. And to be very honest, I did not expect this at all. And I know Denmark's not a hockey power or anything, but, I mean, 14-0, that takes consistency. It takes, a relatively sharp goaltender, because he did have to make a couple saves. But, I mean, we saw a lot out of this first game. We saw Comtois emerge as, just a very fitting captain. I think he's he looks like a surefire NHLer out there. It looks like he's already grown into his body and all that. We saw Frost get a little flair out there. He was excellent. I know you might have had a little problem with that goal celebration though. What's that about?
I did. Just the boys weren't watching the game. He straight up. It's 2-0 for Canada. 3-0, 2-0.
I think it was
3. It was the second goal of the game. 3-0.
Yeah.
This guy, he scores just like some short side shot.
It was a good goal
from the hash marks.
It was a good goal.
And in his celebration, he straight up skates behind the Denmark net and does this celebration.
He did the Austin Matthews.
Yeah, where he's like, I can't hear you. Yeah. I thought it was a little much for a 3-0 first round robin game against Denmark. It's not a goal. It's not a medal game. You're not playing Russia or the States. It's a little too much showboating, if you ask me. And I hate to be the Don Cherry here because I know he's he's drumming that drum all the time. But boy, oh boy, I couldn't take it.
Yeah, I can understand if you pull off a move like that against a rival team like the U.S. or Russia or something. But I think that's. You could be a little more classy with a team like Denmark, for sure.
I feel like it definitely looks worse, too, because they ended up winning by such a large margin. You just look like an asshole.
You didn't just score, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good points all around. I think, now just me knowing my bias, if that was an American player who did that in any circumstance, I'd be ticked. I'd be so pissed about that. Typical American scum. But no, I looked at it, when in the moment I saw it, and I was like, I kind of just tuned it out. I didn't like it, but I didn't dislike it at the time. But yeah, Dante's right. Just seeing the score and then seeing the highlights and seeing that, it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
The kid is 19.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Very
we
young.
have to remember.
So I don't want to be too, draconian on
product of Aurora, Ontario, might I add.
Yeah, exactly. So and hey, I love the story. The dad is the public address announcer of the Toronto Maple Leafs all those years. So a great hockey background. Great story, and a great pick for the Flyers, sure to be. I just had a little bit of problem with that, but I'm letting that dominate this conversation too much. Yeah. Overall, I agree with your Comtois point. Any guy who, in the span of 45 seconds, can lay a gigantic hit and score a great goal in the same shift is Jamie Benworthy. That is captain worthy. That's what I want to see out of a hockey player. I think he's my favorite forward so far. Mikey DiPietro. Like you said, had to make some tough saves. I'd say it was a timely kind of game. You had to make some timely saves. Denmark had a power play earlier in the game, had to make some saves here and there. And I loved his interview after the game. By far the most character, as the crowd knows, as the listeners know. I'm a big evaluator of character. That's how much I take a lot of emphasis in that when I evaluate players. And this guy, to me, looks like full of character, very Carter Hutton-like in his post-game approach. On the ice, had a bit of shades of Jonathan Quick. I don't want to go too far down that road because that's a tough comparison to make given how unique a goaltender he is. But boy, oh boy, the way he moves around the crease, up and down, side to side, I just really like what I saw from Mikey DiPietro. So DiPietro gets a thumbs up from me. Frost gets a thumbs up with the exception of the celebration. And obviously Comtois. The Ducks have a great talent in him. So, all around, good performance from Canada.
Yeah, and the coaching staff actually went out and they said it. They said, DiPietro, he's our guy. So he's officially won the number one job.
Really?
Which is,
That's bold.
Yeah, so...
Before the other guys even had a start.
Exactly, yeah. And they look at stuff like his resume. Like, he's won a Memorial Cup, which is...
He played in the World Championships. He was the third goalie.
Yes,
That's
he took
crazy.
shots against Connor
That's
McDavid.
crazy.
Yeah. So, look at it. This tournament's a lot about pedigree, Nick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very 19-year-old dominated tournament, and if you've got experience, it goes a long way in putting you on this team. So that was good. Now, I want to make a quick touch on the defense here, Nick. Now, we know Evan Bouchard has that prominent offensive role in the power play, and you could really see his skill in passing there. But in terms of an overall dynamic talent, I look at Ty Smith as one of the more, dynamic defensemen out there. I mean, I like Bouchard and what he brings, but he did have some defensive lapses too. Like, he let that breakaway go, which turned into the penalty shot, which was, it was okay. I mean... But he's got a big body. I'd like to see him use it a bit more, too. I mean, the physicality can't all come from Comtois there,
Yeah, I agree. But I do like the balance on defense. I do like how you have the Bouchards, the Dobsons, the puck-moving guys. And then you got the other fellas who are more of a heavy presence, can throw the body around. Bouchard, by the way, he showed fantastic vision so far.
Yes.
I really like what I'm seeing from him.
Yeah.
Barrett Hayden, Frost's line mate, the centerman of that line.
Oh.
He's been fantastic.
That's a player.
He can play anywhere on the ice.
He's showing he's worthy of that 5th overall pick, is he not?
Of course.
Yeah.
So Phoenix, they've got a good one in him. Now, here's the one guy I do have a problem with.
We had to talk about this.
Alexis Lafreniere, the 2020 projected first overall pick. He's boggling my mind a little because you've been talking the talk about this guy. I've never seen him play. Yesterday was the first game I've actually seen this guy play in.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't told me he was the projected 2020 first overall pick, I just would have thought this guy was the 13th forward who made the team. Which he was, by the way.
He was.
But to me, he just looked like some third line. Some guy who's just there to fill the hole in your lineup.
Now, remember when I told you way back then, he's a very confusing prospect, especially with his height, because he doesn't have any of those skills that jump off the page. Did you see that out there?
No, yeah, he was throwing the body around. He was, doing what he could to fit in, but...
He looks like a stick figure, doesn't he?
Sure, yeah, fair enough.
But now, Nick, this is actually what I expected out of him, and what a lot of prospect guys expected. He's not coming into this tournament looking to dominate, but I did see an element of his game that I've never seen, which is his physicality. Like you mentioned, he was hitting, and he was actually hitting pretty good. I'd like to see the stat on it, but he had at least 4 really good hits out there. And what I looked for him because of his age and his experience is that I wanted him to fit in. I didn't want to see him look out of place. I didn't really want to notice him out there. That's what I considered a success for him. And if you look back, if you rewind the clock a little bit, I mean, I just got the Nathan MacKinnon jersey. In Nathan MacKinnon's first year on the World Juniors, his only year, which was his actual draft year. So he was older than Lafreniere is today. He had 1 assist in 6 games. Wow. He had not a very prominent role, but I mean, these young guys, it's super rare for them to actually perform. I think McDavid had a relatively good year. I think he had 4 points in 6 games when he was that age. So, I mean, I'm not expecting a whole lot out of him. That being said, give him a chance in the power play, and I think he could change your mind out there. I am noticing his physical abilities, skill-wise, maybe not quite up to speed, but his mind is working, and it's working well when he does get the chance.
Does he even have a spot on the power play? The second unit?
No.
Wow.
He has to work his way onto that second unit. Jeez. That's the thing. And if he doesn't do that, again, you're not going to really notice him out there. That's the problem there. But
Well, if Canada's going to have a good run here, they're going to have a number of games under their belt. So
Yeah.
hopefully he does have time to progress. Hopefully he shows some life in the Switzerland game tonight against the who's the other team in their group? I know they got Russia on New Year's Eve.
Russia. Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah,
That's
not much competition there. Hopefully he can show himself in the
Yeah.
next two games
Yeah.
against Switzerland and the other squad, and then hopefully by Russia he's cemented himself on one of those power play units.
Put up a couple points.
Yeah,
and
that'd
then-
be great.
Yeah.
Because it's embarrassing when
shut
your team scores 14. Hear me out here, boys.
No.
When your team scores 14 goals and you didn't have an assist, you had no presence on
Bad
any
luck.
of those points.
No.
That's a little
come
embarrassing.
on. You're an ass.
Well, I mean, especially if you're like the top projected
Yeah.
guy, you know.
Come on.
You gotta at least score one.
This guy.
Assist
you
on
can't-
one.
You can't even deny that. 14 goals.
I was a little disappointed. I'm not gonna lie, but again, if this was 6-0, if it was 6-7-0, and he had no points, I'd be like, perfect, that's fine. But
Yeah, I don't know about
14-0,
that
no
either,
points. I don't know, guys. Like it again. I like the guy. I want to see him do well, but he's confusing as shit. Like if you watch him, you go, he's all right. He's an average player,
But the first overall pick shouldn't be
I know,
confusing as shit.
but
He
let-
should be undisputedly great.
But Nick, the top 5 projected first, like, of the 2020 draft, they're not even here. Lafreniere made Team Canada the deepest team, and no one else is even here, except for Anton Lundell, which, you know, that's
He
a
made
side
the team
point.
because Gabe Vilardi couldn't play. Let's face it, Gabe
But
Vilardi
regardless,
had a spot.
though, regardless, like, look at all the other, like, there's a lot of Finnish talent, there's a lot of, you know, Swedish talent. They didn't make their squads, and I'm willing to wager that Canada is deeper than Sweden and Finland, regardless of these injuries. So it's a testament that he's even there and fitting in. That's he's already getting at least a B+.
All I will say in closing my statement here is he will be under the microscope. I think if there's a Canadian player who's under the most pressure to contribute in these next coming games, the next couple games here, I think it's got to be that guy.
I agree. Yeah, because he's got the hype. He's got the features on SportsCenter and Sportsnet. I mean, it's almost too much. Like, I think there's a confidence issue coming along. If you know, he's gonna read stuff. Oh, Lafreniere and Dobson were the only two without a point. Even the goalie had a point. Like, you know, he's gonna see
the
this.
goalie did have a point.
3 players, the backup goalie, Dobson, and Lafreniere did not have a point. And he's gonna see this, and I'm worried it might shake his confidence, but if he gets playing with a little bit of confidence, you'll start to see some of the deft little plays he can make. But regardless of that, I have one more question regarding the juniors. Did you see any of the USA and in particular the Hughes brothers last night?
I saw some of the highlights. I saw Jack assist. I think his name's.
Did he?
He assisted the captain, the U.S. American captain, the Kings prospector, tying goal. I think Mikey Anderson's his name. I know Anderson's the last name.
defenseman,
Yeah,
yeah?
defenseman.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah,
captain.
yeah.
Assisted his game tying goal, and then they squeaked out a win against the Slovaks. Now, what I will say is the Americans, I believe they lost against the Slovaks last year. So what Pierre mentioned this morning, and Pierre said this morning, he said it could settle down. He said it could be that they're in their heads, the Slovaks, because of that loss last
that's an
year.
excuse.
And that's why they came out a little simmer down. That's why they came out a little soft.
So basically, comment from the peanut gallery.
Like I said, Will, simmer down. Simmer down.
Oh boy. Well, here's what I will say. Quinn looked fantastic last night. Absolutely. He looks like the best player in the tournament. I don't care who's on Canada. Quinn looks like the best player in the tournament.
Wow.
Jack got a little roughed up physically, which I like to see. Should prove you can handle the physicality out there. But yeah, disappointed with USA. Hugely disappointed. Should have crushed Slovakia. And that's all I have to say.
Well, a
about
game
that.
I will be tuning into with much anticipation. It'll be the U.S. against Kazakhstan tomorrow night.
Holy
Kazakhstan.
fuck.
First
That's going to be a
time-
bloodbath.
Is this their first World Junior game, Kazakhstan?
No, they're in and out, but they're actually like really impressed. Like, Kazakhstan has a team good enough to be in this
Canada
tournament.
put up 14 against Denmark. I'm curious how much the Americans can put up against Kazakhstan.
Fuck, is Germany even in this tournament?
They are not. They've qualified for next year because they won the
Right.
But this year there will be no Germany. Kazakhstan's kind of the Germany of this year.
I mean, if you remember, in the Olympics, Kazakhstan got absolutely slaughtered, so I assume it'll be something close to that.
Oh my god. I hope... Yeah, they were talking about having some sort of mercy rule in place here.
Really?
We might need this.
Wow.
Like, they don't have it right now, but maybe they should. Like, poor Denmark, right?
Mhm.
But, yeah, I mean, USA, you know, I don't know. Aside from the Hughes brothers, I didn't see a whole lot. I saw Wallstrom fumbling around a little bit. But that's all I have to say about them. They've got more proving to do than Canada.
Yeah, like, I mean, the Kazakhstan game, we won't be able to read in much from that either. It'll just be a beatdown.
Yeah, sure.
But the second they play an actual competitive team, I believe they're in the same group as Sweden, as well as Finland, right?
All I can say is watch out for Finland.
Yeah.
They have a lot of really
in the preliminary game against Canada, who they actually they beat Canada in that game. I mean, Capo Caco was electric. Tolvanen, Kupari, those are all first power play guys. The power play looked fantastic. I was very impressed with the Finns.
Yeah, and they got that funny goalie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who is just going to be a star in my dreams. Right. So, yeah, and I think that wraps up the World Juniors, Nick. We're facing off against Switzerland tonight. I'm really excited. They should be more of a challenge for sure than Denmark. I think in the pre-tournament, we beat them 4-3. So, close game. And then, just fired up. Let's see another challenge for Canada here. And let's see some laughing.
And they've got
points.
that very funny, talkative coach.
Oh yeah.
So you know he's going to rally his troops together, and they're going to bring forward a good competition.
I think he's a fool.
Hey, I think he knows what he's saying. He's a smart dude. So
yeah.
I think he's going to do what he can to rally the troops tonight, and hopefully it's a good contest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, I mean, we opened with the World Juniors for a reason, given there's been no NHL action in the past, 3-4 days? It's been the annual holiday break for the NHL. And, not much to talk about with the main league here, but one conversation we did want to get into, and this is segueing from the Sunday afternoon game between Boston and Carolina. And I think by this very song, the listeners will know where we're headed with this conversation. Now, Will Angles, our resident Hartford Whalers historian, would you like to brief the audience on what they just heard?
Well, Nick, that would be the Brass Bonanza, possibly one of the most storied hockey team songs actually I could possibly think of in the NHL. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, that was ubiquitous with one of the best underdog teams the WHA ever produced, the Whalers. I guess really to tell the story, you got to go back to a simpler time, a little bit of a departure from the polished hockey that the listeners are aware of. Kind of the time where beer was cheap, fights were plentiful, and the hard rock abounded, and that would be 1972. And back in the day, they were the league landscape was a bit more fractured. I know the NHL had a pretty continuous competition between the World Hockey Association and the National Hockey League. And the Whalers got their start in Boston. I remember they had to kind of jostle for arena space at the Gardens with the Bruins, the Braves, even the Celtics.
I heard they once played in a shopping mall.
I have not heard about that.
I
would actually not be surprised. I mean, I'm not really much of a hockey fan, but
that's what I read somewhere.
I think the reason I like the Whalers so much is they seem like the team that best represents America. They're a bunch of scrappy underdogs with a very devoted fan base, and hell, they even played the Soviets in the Super Series back in '76. So, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that.
And don't forget about those beautiful uniforms.
Oh, the graphic design, man. saying exactly what you mean is kind of a hard part of the logo design, and oh boy, do the Whalers do it well. I mean, it's clean, it's crisp. Those green uniforms, man, when they step on the ice, like, you know exactly who's playing.
Now, of course, for the audience, the reason we're getting into this conversation is because the Hurricanes, they had their one of the first ever bring back the Whalers uniform night. I believe the first of 3 this season, and they thought, they'd paid homage to tradition. And they'd break out the Whalers uniforms for one night. They won in winning fashion. It was a great night. Pucky the Whale was there celebrating with the team after the game. It was a great time for that one single night. But the conversation I wanted to have with the boys here is, what do you think of this? Is this just some commercial, a money grab? Is this actually to honor a long legacy, a beloved legacy, a beloved team? What do you make of this? And I want to start with Will, because him being the most, he's wearing his Hartford Whalers jacket right now. I mean, you being the resident fan here, what did you make of this?
I think I like the idea in practice if the team itself was not hanging on by their fingernails to a franchise. I mean, everyone knows what kind of low turnout the Canes usually get, and I think it's kind of egregious because ever since the Whalers left in '97, I mean, Hartford's kind of been starved for like local hockey. I mean, like, what do they have? Like the Wolfpack and Yukon. Like, I mean, to me, it seems a little bit like a bit of a gimmick, kind of trying to coast off of another team's legacy. And this is a team that really stayed around longer than the laws of hockey economics probably would have let it. I mean, like, you're right between two massive fan bases, being the Rangers up north and the Bruins up north and the Rangers down south. And I mean, they just couldn't make the turnouts, and it's a shame that such a great team had to kind of fall by the wayside because of that. But I don't know, it just seems a little bit disingenuous, I guess. Just having no stake whatsoever aside from being like the continuing franchise, but you're still going to wear their jerseys and kind of like try and leech off of that legacy of theirs,
Right, and I agree with. I think there's merit to your point about how the team's floundering at the moment, the Hurricanes, that is. And Kyle and I were just talking about this the other week, about how this owner seemingly doesn't know anything about hockey, comes into this market, buys this team, is trying to do everything he can to kind of mix things up and get the team back together. And he's boots on the ground. He's trying to influence what the coach is doing. He's trying to influence what the manager's doing. And he literally, with this move, it looks like he's trying to do everything he can to keep the team in Carolina and to make his investment a solid one. And so I don't think it's coincidental how literally the first year this guy's the owner, we have Hartford Whalers, let's celebrate the Whalers night.
Well, I mean, North Carolina ain't Tennessee, right? So there you have it.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, they have a low turnout for a reason.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Anyone else have anything to say here?
I mean, I think Will kind of said it best. I kind of took the words right out of my mouth, but this is definitely they're just looking to sell some jerseys, Nick. Plain and simple.
Bonafide gimmick, man.
It's exactly what it is. I mean, it's like Will said, they're just going off another team's legacy, and they're just trying to make some money. But it is what it is, I mean, chances are they're doing a great job of that, so it's been successful for them, I'm sure. And, the fans kind of get a little here and there. They bring back the jerseys, everyone's kind of happy. No one really thinks about it in this way, I don't think.
Yeah,
so
it's nice to see players wearing the jersey on the ice again in an actual professional hockey game, I guess. Because, I don't think they really picked up the kind of popularity, the kind of like long-lasting popularity that they did until around the 80s. I mean, like, even for like the first few years, they were still the New England Whalers, right? And then they had to move to Hartford because of the whole arena issue. But I mean, I see both sides of the coin, I really do. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to call it out as what it is, and that is just, an owner who doesn't really have a personal stake in the game of hockey, who's really just trying to do what he can to make his floundering team seem a bit like more on the ball than they are right now.
And what I don't think should be overlooked is what are actual people from Hartford Whaler fans who grew up Whaler fans thinking of this? I mean,
they're livid, absolutely livid. I mean, every Connecticut hockey page online the aggressive memes, the I mean, I don't want to be the kind of guy who judges the opinion of a large group of people off of like their online habits, but I don't know about you, but if a post has the first emoji on a post is angry reacts, I mean, like, what does that mean, right? Like I said, they've been starved for good local hockey for the last few years, and it's hard to see a team that you used to love and you grew up with kind of being like almost feasted on by like vultures and jackals, right? Like it's just I mean, that's what it is, right? Like it's just you can't let this wonderful team just even die gracefully. You have to bring them back up, wear their jerseys. Nice to see, because again, like guys on the ice wearing old Whalers jerseys, it brings back those emotions of all the guys growing up in the 70s who watched these heavyweights like Bobby Hull and the Gordie Howes just tear it up. And if I recall correctly, they weren't actually a bad team whatsoever. I mean, one of the only 4 stable teams from the WHA that actually made the cut when they merged with the NHL, and you know,
nice for fans who like the jersey too. I mean, chances are you're not going to be finding one of those anywhere. But
it's a slick looking jersey.
That's the thing. So now that they brought them back, if you did like the jersey, I mean, it's a good thing.
No, yeah, and Ray Ferraro, one of the most popular Hartford Whaler players in the history of the franchise, drafted a Whaler. He even said there's no kind of warm and fuzzy feeling from that fan base like there should be, and so it goes to show you that they've kind of sabotaged things here.
Just bring back the Whalers. Just bring them back.
Yeah, I guess just bring back the Whalers.
I mean, like, what are some like crappy franchises you could think of that be replaced by that? Richard?
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, what would you think it would take for that kind of comeback in similar fashion to the Winnipeg Jets for a team like the Hartford Whalers? Do you think there's any potential for that, given that people are asking for the jerseys to come back?
I mean, dedicated fan base aside, they may very well run into the same problem they did back in the late 80s, early 90s with the just existing between these two enormous hemispheres of influence between these just two of the original 6, right? You know, Rangers and Bruins. It just being smack in the middle of that, you really have to have a fan base that's going to consistently spend money and go out to games. And they didn't have it back in the 80s, and maybe nowadays, after having lost their team for so long, they might be able to get some of that back. But it seems to me that it's the glory days of, you know, post WHA, post like NHL kind of rivalry. They're gone. I mean, what are they like? They're going to have to, even if the Whalers came back tomorrow, they'd still be at that crummy Hartford Civic Center, the XL Center now, I think. But they'd essentially be there, and they'd have to draw the fans in from all of these different towns around. And
yeah, no, Rick, like, just if there's anything we've learned about today's NHL and the commissioner today in power, it's that he's a money hoarding ogre. And there's no better way to put it. I mean, if you are going to revive a franchise or introduce a new one, you better have a stadium. You better have a consistent fan base that's going to turn up each and every night. And it's all about the monetary aspects of the team. And the way he sees it right now, and we mentioned this with Kyle, is these markets like Quebec Nordiques and Hartford Whalers, as beloved as they are in the history and the legacy that's there, the situation just isn't as firm and cemented, and it isn't as it's not a bona fide certified investment that he doesn't feel is safe about making. And so he'd rather buy a team in Austin or Houston or something like that, something where you know you're going to get the return because there's 2 basketball teams there, there's 2 baseball teams there, there's a guaranteed market. And so that's why I think there's, as sad as it is to say, I can't see a new team from any of those cities coming up.
It's a game of just, dollars and cents, and as harsh as it might be, the idea of setting up a team in an emerging market seems a lot more attractive than bringing back a team that actually did have some very serious problems when it was around, at least from the economic side, versus starting fresh in an area where there's going to be a fan base, there's going to be consistent turnout at games. Like, if I recall correctly, the only time the Civic Center ever really filled up for the Whalers games was when they were playing against Boston and all the fans drove down. So, like,
or when Pierre Maguire was coaching. I mean that must have lured everyone to the game, right?
I mean, like, I'd drive miles to see Mr. Peanut. So, the monocle, the top hat, like, you can't get any better than that. Didn't he really whip that team into shape too when they played against the Canadians?
Yeah, I know he told a great tale recently about this one time where he called it the most successful road trip in Hartford Whalers history. The team lost. They got blown out at the Montreal Forum one evening, his hometown. He was so disgusted with his team that he skated them the following morning at 6:30 in the morning, hopped on a bus to Winnipeg, won in Winnipeg, lost in overtime to Calgary, won in Vancouver, and won at Edmonton. In Edmonton. So he claims it's the greatest road trip in Hartford history, which I find very hard to believe. 4-1-1 is the best road trip in your history, but whatever.
I mean, even to make it to the end of the Eastern Conference, like to the playoffs, like they still had to go past the Bruins or the Canadians, which are just it even for a team as root forable as the Whalers. So it's almost as if like a boxer with a lot of heart is going up against like the Tysons and the Mayweathers of the world, Mm-hmm. Like it's just you got to have an insane amount of hustle and just drive on the ice to really like surmount those odds,
Sure. Yeah, and we're seeing it today with what's going on with the new playoff format, how the Leafs seemingly have to face the Bruins every playoff season and they get mucked, or they got to play Tampa potentially. So, yeah, I mean it's kind of gone full circle. And what's this? Kyle's what do you? Oh,
more
okay,
beer, eh?
Yeah, more beer, eh? You want us to get you another beer, eh?
Dante, get banana beer.
Yeah, you've been quiet for some time, Kyle. What are you saying there?
Nick, it's just nice to hear other people talk for once.
You can just sit back and just relax and vegetate on that chair, don't you?
Just drink my beer and watch the show gain diversity by the very second. It's a beautiful thing.
When you're drinking those beers, Kyle, what would be your favorite beer to drink during a game?
Ooh, Dante.
You're just sitting on the couch watching a hockey game.
It's an excellent question.
Feet
Dante.
are up, fireplace is on.
Now,
what are you drinking, Kyle?
In my younger years, when I was in university, I would say my beer of choice was a simple Molson Canadian.
Oh!
For the very fact that it's cheap and it's just kind of a no hassle kind of beer, and it's just nice to have the maple leaf on the can when I'm drinking. I mean, if it's more of a
look at this patriotic sap.
If it's more of a get together where we're all making merry, gestures and all that and holiday stuff, maybe I'll go for like a Keith's or something. Or maybe a Moosehead. That's a nice choice of mine as well. But I try to avoid the American beers when I'm watching hockey. It just doesn't feel right in the soul. Try to avoid Coors Banquets, Coors Light, Bud Light. Although Bud Light does have a special place in my heart for Jack Eichel purposes. But I keep that for the jokes. But yeah, generally around World Junior time or Canada time, it's mostly Molson Canadian or whatever I can grab.
I'm with you with the Molson there. Really makes you feel patriotic. Just lights up your heart on the inside a little there.
Exactly.
I think it's just, that's what you're looking for.
I want to ask you, Will. I know you're not such a huge hockey fan, but I know you're a fan of your beers. So what do you see yourself drinking on a nice night watching some hockey?
I think our friend Kyle here is really neglecting the seedier underbelly of the Molson franchise. I mean, beers like Molson Golden, like possibly one of the greatest light beers ever introduced. I mean, rest its soul, but OV, any kind of $2 Euro can like Spaten or Wernesgerner or Dab, like you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that if you go to the beer store and roll up with your $40 to buy your case of beer, you can do a lot better than Canadian. And if you spring for the taller cans and the better beer, I mean, I think really the Americans perfected the factory beer. Canada's not really there right now. I mean, you got things like High Life, Coors Banquet, and I got to tell you, I've done the Pepsi Challenge, and those low key factory Canadian beers, they just don't stand up.
Oh, here's what I'll say, Will. I think I'm coming more around to your side in a way, but I'm still very patriotic on the beers I buy. It's just that now when I go to the beer store, I'm looking for the craftiness.
Oh,
you know,
see,
like in university.
At 16.
Yeah. Well, no, come on.
Come on, man. You have your first beer and you got to try every IPA under the sun. Come on.
What I'm saying is the days of the university drinking habits where I'm just buying like a 2-4 a week. Those days are largely not around at the moment.
You're a man with disposable income now, eh?
Well,
to be said for that.
I find myself drinking a lot less, and usually it's for a game. And in these days, I try to find something that's got a cool can.
So it work counts a lot for you, eh?
Exactly. And there's a lot of craft beers in Canada that really, really nail the can, and the beer just tastes terrible.
I reckon you're a bit more well-adjusted than me. I mean, like, for me, it's a pure economics matter. Again, going back to the Whalers, like, I gotta be getting the most amount of beer for my money when I walk into the beer store. That being said, I will occasionally splurge on a craft beer because you just can't beat that like, as long as it's good. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shitty craft beers out there that are, seems like every brewery these days is making an IPA, and as nice as those are on occasion, it's not something I'd want to drink all the time. I'm not a guy who bases my identity on just drinking IPAs and being as masochistic as possible.
Yeah, and I find like when a craft brewery makes like a hoppy style beer, they all sort of taste the same.
Oh, and
like,
that's
it's hard for them to differentiate.
And then I reckon that you can actually use the bitterness of hops to just mask any bad brewing techniques.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, imagine if you're just you're some bum brewmaster who like fires together whatever piece of crap you want to, and doesn't let it ferment properly, doesn't do the process properly, and it's hoppy, so mans aren't going to taste the lousy brewing. There you go. There you have it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of what's your favorite craft brewery in Ontario?
My favorite would have to be a little joint in Gravenhurst called Soda City. That was the old name for the town back in the day before it swapped over to Gravenhurst. And
really?
I gotta say, generally pretty reasonable price wise, but boy, do they have some fantastic beers. It's the one brewery that I still have left over from my younger days when I used to, shop for beer by can art. And I mean, like Nick, he's had it. He can vouch for this. I mean, what did we have this summer? A butter tart beer?
Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed you'd find a butter tart beer? I mean, that's really something.
And it tasted like a butter tart.
It really did. We ate butter tarts by a campfire with these butter tart beers, and it was, wow, boy. Words cannot mention how good that is.
I mean, like,
yeah.
After drinking,
that sounds terrible, boys.
Jackass. After drinking so many kind of like, I find that after a while, especially with these factory beers and even some of the more larger imports from Europe, the lager kind of tends to blend together, and then it almost seems like every one of them tastes kind of the same. I mean, like, as much as I can say without a doubt that Molson Canadian cannot stand up to these American factory beers and what I get from Europe, I got to be honest. After a while, you get a little bit sick of them, so you kind of want something a bit new, and they really do it with the Kolsch. I mean,
Oh yes. Yeah. If no one's had it, the Soda City Kolsch.
Gateway Kolsch.
Gateway Kolsch, one of Dante's very favorites.
Classic lagered ale from Cologne, Germany.
Fantastic
very good.
stuff.
Very
now, one thing I do want to mention is, beers aside, what's the best beverage to drink at a hockey game? Like, just in general. I mean, beers aside, you can pick anything you want. What is the prototypical drink to have over the course of a hockey game?
Well, I reckon it goes back to the old Canadian coffee, right? Canadian Club, Black Tim's Cup, or double if you're a coward.
Right.
Aside from that, I mean, like, really just dealer's choice. Whatever you can fit in your pocket. I guess it only really changes when you go to an actual rink and you go to the ACC and you have to pretty much decide whether or not you're gonna break into the theater or break into the arena with your own booze, you're going to pay that $12 a beer when you're there, right?
Yeah, no, I'd have to say I'd vouch for a nice black dark roast from Tim's. That's what I always get, and it's a nice warm beverage to have sitting in. What's that, Will? Do you have something to say?
Well, you're forgetting the biggest part, Richard. What kind of booze are you putting in that?
Oh boy, I'm not a fan of mixing those two. But no, that's what I was saying. It's
you're gonna spike in your Tim's before class.
Richard, coffee and alcohol are it's probably the most classic combination out there.
I'm all about preserving my health nowadays.
Oh, Mr. Triathlon over here.
No, I think a good cup of Tim's goes a long way.
I'd like to state for the record that out of this group of friends, I am definitely the biggest degenerate. So take this old man's opinion with a grain of salt. These lads over here, they have they have shit to be prepared for, and friggin' Richard, I mean, he's out running and swimming all the time, so probably can't gas as much booze as this man can. But that being said, Canadian club, and if you're in the States, maybe Seagram's, I guess. But any kind of shitty coffee and that, you can't go wrong.
And so does that transcend into the territory of best booze to kind of sneak into a game? Because oftentimes, let's say it's a minor hockey game, you're not going to show up with your with a 2-4,
This is getting weird. Well, Dante, you had something to say?
You're gonna spike your coffee with some booze to go watch a minor hockey game?
Triple A.
Man, you gotta get gassed up for those parking lot fights, though.
If I'm going to watch my little kid play hockey, or my brother or my cousin or something play hockey, I'm not gonna be spiking my coffee on the way to the game there.
Well, it's nice to hear that, Professor Highbrow. All I'm going to say is that you really just can't beat having a warm beverage, getting a bit drunk, and sitting out in the cold. To me, that seems like something that's been done by generations of Canadians throughout pretty much as long as we've been doing shit outside in the cold, which is since we've ever existed. And
Sounds like a recipe for hypothermia, if you ask me.
Sounds like a recipe for some good parking lot scraps. That's what I think. Come on, man! You're going to a minor league hockey game, and some guy roughs up your kid, and you get to just throttle him in the parking lot by his Grand Caravan. Why would you not want to do that?
Oh man! I hope you become a hockey dad one day. I'd love to see this.
Speaking of hockey dads, I was talking to my brother, and he was reminiscing about the old days when he used to play for a goofy select team out in Hillcrest, and we were talking about this old hockey dad named Roy. And for those of you who aren't aware, most older Canadian men will bob their heads when they talk to you. So, you know what I'm talking about, eh? When you're going oh, how's it going, eh? And they give you a very aggressive handshake. They kind of always smell a little bit like some cheap butts, like Players or Demoriers or Paul Malls.
Jesus, man, I don't know what hockey dad is playing. My dad sounds nothing like
this. There is charm in looking at the fringe groups of these things like hockey dads, because if you have a buttoned up suburban hockey dad, that's more of a city thing. As soon as you go out to the real places that hockey history is made, the rural parts of Ontario, Aurora, the Oakvilles, the Pickerings, the Ajaxes, they do things a little bit differently out there. It's not so much dudes showing up in a Range Rover, but more guys driving up in a patchy, rusted old pickup truck, smelling like butts, wearing that old crappy down vest, and just being aggressive. And that's I think there's a time and a place for these kinds of people, and at hockey games out in the sticks, that's pretty much it. It's the spirit of the game. That's what they carry with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being a Toronto boy, I can't say I've run into many of those small town hockey dads that smell like butts. They're the
Whalers fans. Rick, they're the Whalers fans that have been transplanted into the 21st century.
I'll take your word for it, Willie.
Hockey's a bit too professional nowadays. I mean, I miss the fights. I miss the lax regulations. It's the kind of thing that you want to just like. Sometimes you just get that instant gratification of just a guy getting jerseyed on the ice and filled by some dude who's probably a bit drunk.
Yeah, they're really cutting down on that stuff these days. You know, they've taken out hitting down to the age of it must be 12 now or something. 12 or 14.
That's rough. I mean, like this is the
or
game.
14. I'm sorry, it's gone higher. Is what I was trying to say. It's gone. It used to be 11 or 12, and now it's up to 14 years old. And I think they may just take it out altogether one of these days.
This is a game though that thrives with a little bit of aggression in it. I think that's what makes a good hockey player. A guy who's aggressive, wants it more than the other guy.
Yeah.
And taking out these fights, man, like it's a sad part of where we are today. But hockey is really one of those games that, without fighting, it's just guys fucking around with sticks and a puck.
Might as well call it ring at it.
I mean, like, might as well play lacrosse at that point, you know? Like,
we just came off the pond and we had some fun, and it's not like guys are throwing the body around, you know.
But you got to realize though that there's always that one dude at a shinny game where he's raising the puck, he's going full YOLO, going full send, and you know, like you don't know, like he might just get a bit cheesed at some stranger he's never met in his life before and thinks, hey, why don't I go as fast as possible, get some speed going around the rink, and fucking buck this guy. Just get him plastered on the ice. I want to see these Toronto kids dance.
How many games of shinny have you been to there, Willie?
Not too many, Rick. Not too many, Rick. But you see what I'm saying, though. You see what I'm saying about how
I understand.
There's the odd guy who just gets a bit too aggressive, bit too rough. But I think that's hockey in essence.
We just saw it today, Will. Nico had the puck actually earlier, and some kid comes flying down the ice, gives Nico a nice little body check.
Well, is this the
buddy? It's shinny.
Wilmington rink?
Yeah.
Oh.
What are you doing there?
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing, but I mean, he was the one who went down, so I felt kind of bad. I didn't do anything.
It was funny. I just saw you looking at him after he fell, but my God.
Or that one guy.
The way he ran at you, though, Nick.
I agree.
What's this guy doing?
But you know, Will's right. I mean, Richmond Hill, I think about a month ago when we were playing there was that big fatso.
Oh.
He was the big 50-year-old fatso.
The guy who did the spinorama?
Thinks he's Mcdavid.
The unit, man. The unit.
Yeah, he's on a breakaway. He does a spinorama. Yeah, I mean... Total spinorama. I mean, he has no business making that move. This guy is
already been on the ice.
This guy's a pucks and pylons at best quality skater.
You gotta imagine a big belly hanging over the hockey pants.
Pretty much
a boiler, as we say up north.
300 to 350 pounds.
Yeah. So I do believe there's merit to Will's point in that there are those kind of guys who will do that shit. So,
but is that just the consequence of just some guys who have a little bit of a pent up aggression hopping on the ice for shinny, or is that just the game itself that no one really likes to talk about too much? I mean, like, Kyle, would you watch a hockey game if there was no chance for a fight whatsoever?
I would, Will, and I have to say this: we, as a collective group, we chirped this guy to no end. He was the joke of the whole game.
The butt of the joke, eh?
Yeah, when you see a guy barreling down the ice and doing all the, like, being too aggressive and raising the puck, guy's a fucking loser, man. Like, we were like, man, this guy does not know how to play hockey. He's not with it. He seems like a construction guy who just wants to get his fucking energy out. That's what he seems like. Like he has no place on our ice.
I guess it's a game of people, and everyone's going to have their own reasons for why they hop on the ice. Some guys like the strategy. Some guys like the dangles, the shots. Some guys like to fight, and I think that's what makes it a really great game.
Yeah, no, we can complain about it all we want, but at the end of the day, it is part of the game that we love and watch every single day, and you got to accept every little part of it.
I have a theory on his backstory, though, and I didn't share this with anyone because I had only seen him at another shinny when you guys weren't there. Right. Unfortunately, you guys were all back at school, but I think that he was a prospect for the NHL. And then he started laying into the burgers a little too hard.
Burgers or cocaine? I think that's what's ruined more hockey careers than double doubles.
Well, if you've seen this guy, it would be definitely burgers with this guy. Let me tell you. He just started laying into a little bit too hard, and next thing you know, he's pushing the 300-pounder, and there's no chance of being in the NHL after that.
So basically, just a gut on skates.
That's
all we got.
That's pretty much exactly what he is there, Will.
Big ball of meat.
Big ball of meat, eh?
That's exactly what it is.
Basically, this shinny was the Stanley Cup Finals for this guy. It doesn't get any better than this.
So
he really didn't.
He's peaked, and now he just roughs guys up on the ice. Eh?
Yeah, exactly. But he wasn't even like roughing guys up on purpose. He was just being a schmuck. Like he wasn't even trying.
You're gonna get those dickheads, I reckon,
yeah.
on the ice. You know, I mean, an open shinny in North York. Like you're gonna get those guys that probably stopped playing hockey a little while ago, missed the camaraderie, missed the yokes, and they have this kind of frustration, and they take it out on those guys that they see on the shinny ice.
Yeah, I mean, just on a closing note here, fellas, and it's a good conversation. I think when you look at the game of hockey and its beauty, you're absolutely correct that there needs to be a physicality to it. But I think we should be able to draw the line between straight up hockey fights and just good hard physicality in the game.
It's a strategic game. It's not like it's a gladiator type situation where you're pretty much just wanting to go see guys filled on ice. All I'm saying is that it's a nice thing to see. You know what I mean? Occasionally, a good fight.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, time and place.
It's the kind of
time and place.
It's the kind of thing that really makes a game worth talking about with your lads at the bar the night after.
Sure. I mean, I don't expect to. We're about to hop on the pond yet again today. I don't anticipate to see a fight between just two guys who are having fun on the holidays. Like, I don't think that stuff's warranted. But like I said, time and place. There's a certain time and place for everything, and you just gotta tailor the game around.
The history of the game might be a little bit cleaned up these days, but. Like I said, back when those Whalers were around, things were rough. Fights were a lot more common. I mean, like weren't some of the greatest enforcers in the history of the game out of that period, out of the 70s?
Of course,
yeah,
of course.
Now Nick says time and place, and I think it's a really good point because these days when we see fights, it's for all the wrong reasons. Now, you mentioned, a fight here and there does the fans and the team some good. I think that's absolutely true, but you have to do it in the right moments. Someone roughs up your goalie, I have no problem with you dropping the gloves. But if someone lays a clean hit on fucking Sean Monahan, come on, man, it's a clean hit. It's Sean Monahan's fault, There's too much nonsense.
You get those shenanigans, because some guys are just a bit more aggressive than others.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that aggressive, whether it manifests itself in a rumble on the ice or a guy just aggressively pushing that puck to the other guy's zone, that's the kind of fire that you really need for this game, and that's the kind of thing that it's going to be ubiquitous with hockey for as long as it's around.
Well, on that note, boys, I salute all of you. This was a fantastic time.
Roundtable.
The first of many, I hope. I hope the audience enjoyed it just as much as we did. And, until next time, we hope you guys enjoy the World Juniors. It started, like we said. More games on tonight. NHL action starts again tonight. Kyle and I are facing off in fantasy, so there should be lots to talk about in our next episode. So we hope you guys enjoyed this, and we will see you guys next time.
Rink Moose
is signing off.